Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. This man right here is Gardner Minshew. I think he needs no introduction. Even though his quarterback play might not be the best, he is perfect in every sense of the word, and I would die for the man. On opening day of the 2019 NFL season, coming off of the bench, Minshew had an unbelievable debut. He was extremely accurate. He made no mistakes, with the one interception on his stat line being a drop pass by Leonard Fournette. On the day, Minshew went 22 for 25, completing 88% of his passes for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 122.5. If Fournette holds on to the ball on the interception, that rating shoots all the way up to just under 140. For any rookie to play like that is amazing. For a 6th-round pick to play like that is sensational. And to do it in your first game coming off of the bench, when you were never expected to enter the contest at any point is, well, I don't even have the words for it. It's that good. And like I said, Minshew threw 2 touchdown passes on the day. One of them came in the 4th quarter and went to D.D. Westbrook, the third-year man out of Oklahoma. The other one came later in the game and was a 21-yard strike to Chris Conley. Want to see the footage of the second one? That is the only surviving footage of Gardner Minshew's second touchdown pass. There is no broadcast footage available. There is no commentary available. There are no alternate angles available. This is all we've got. This footage that looks like it's straight out of the high school broadcast is all that's left of Minshew's second career touchdown, and is all the evidence we have to show that, yes, Gardner Minshew threw 2 touchdown passes in this game. Because you see, no one was able to watch this play happen. Unless you were one of the 10 fans still left in the stadium, you were unable to see this play. And the reason for that? CBS did not show the final 7 minutes of the game. I don't mean that they cut away from the game in markets to show a more competitive game, but kept the game on in Kansas City and Jacksonville per NFL rules. I meant that no matter where you were in the country, unless you were at TIAA Bank Field on this day, you were unable to watch this play. It seems bizarre that a broadcasting controversy like this would exist in 2019, but we're going to take a deep dive into that today. Because this is the story behind what has to be, considering the circumstances, the craziest broadcasting controversy of the 2019 season. Before I talk about the actual controversy in question, we need some context to understand how the game itself was going before this entire debacle happened. It's September 8th, 2019. It's opening day of the NFL season, and we've got an AFC battle on our hands between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars. To say that storylines are plentiful in this one would be an understatement, as there's a reason why this is, for all intents and purposes, the national 1 o'clock game. You have the first game for Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes following his MVP season, and the first game for the Chiefs after making the AFC Championship the previous year, being one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. You have former Super Bowl MVP quarterback Nick Foles making his highly anticipated debut as a Jacksonville Jaguar. I don't think anyone really expected the Jaguars to win this game, but you never know. Opening day can produce some surprises. This was not one of them. In fact, the only thing surprising was just how terrible the Jaguars looked. The Chiefs ended up winning this one by a final score of 40-26, although the game was not really that close. The Chiefs led it the whole way through after a touchdown pass by Patrick Mahomes to Sammy Watkins just 90 seconds and 3 plays into the contest, and they led it 37-13 at one point in the 4th quarter. Jacksonville, much like a ton of teams, had no answers whatsoever for stopping Mahomes. as he finished the day going 25 for 33 with 378 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 143.2. I don't even know how many missed tackles the Jaguars had on the day, but it felt like at least 30. The Jags played incredibly undisciplined football, turning it over twice and committing 10 penalties, including one in the end zone as the Chiefs were driving that got linebacker Myles Jack, just a few days after signing a contract extension, ejected from the game. Somehow, Sammy Watkins had 9 catches for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns, looking like prime Jerry Rice out there, and setting the first quarter record at the time for most receiving yards in NFL history. LaShawn McCoy, in his first game with the Chiefs, had 81 rushing yards on over 8 yards per carry. And Nick Foles, after just 2 drives, got injured with a broken collarbone and would later be ruled out for the first 2 months of the season. This game, in every sense of the word, was an absolute disaster and embarrassment for the Jaguars, and I cannot stress that enough. However, for any Chiefs fans that wanted to bask in the victory, or for any Jags fans that wanted to watch the entirety of this game because they're gluttons for punishment, unless you were actually inside the stadium on this day, you had no idea how the game ended. Because after a failed 2-point conversion by the Jaguars kept it at 37-19, so an 18-point game, the game was turned off. And I don't mean that it was switched in the non-Jacksonville and Kansas City markets, since NFL rules allow a network to flip the game to a more competitive game, so long as it remains in the markets of the teams playing. As an example, this game could not be flipped off in Jacksonville or Kansas City, but it could be flipped off anywhere else. I mean that literally everywhere across the country, including Jacksonville and KC, the game was unable to be seen. And the reason for that? A massive power failure. Now, I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but it was a brutally hot day in Jacksonville. Playing a Week 1 game in early September at 1 o'clock Eastern in an open-air stadium is just a recipe for disaster in every sense of the word. When you've got 97-degree highs and 54% humidity making it feel like 99 degrees, and when you've got 86 medical calls taking place at the game, with 18 fans having to be transported to the hospital due to dehydration, that's when you know it's really hot. And again, we have no idea if this was the reason for it, but during the fourth quarter of the contest, with the temperature still rising, and with many fans having left the venue by this point due to the heat and the one-sided nature of the contest, a small fire broke out in the fuse box. The problem with this fire in particular, besides the fact that it's a fire, and fires are never good, the fuse box was, in some ways, connected to the production truck outside the stadium that was broadcasting the game. And this meant that when the fire happened, sure enough, the broadcast went out. The stadium lost power, but eventually, the power in the stadium got restored. The same could not be said about the production truck, though, as that was still left in the dark. That meant that no one except the fans in the stadium would have any idea as to what was happening. From a purely visual perspective, you were straight out of luck if you wanted to watch the end of this game, said Jennifer Sabatel, the Senior Vice President of Communications for CBS, after the game on this incident. Due to a power outage during the Kansas City-Jacksonville game, viewers were switched to a different game. We regret that we were unable to return the audience to their scheduled game before power was restored. And sure, technical difficulties happen every now and then, where something happens to the broadcast and a camera is down or the audio feed isn't working. But this was something else entirely. This was the final 7.5 minutes of the game, just completely unable to be shown to anyone. I should note before going any further that CBS was absolutely abysmal in terms of their communication throughout this entire ordeal. Yes, this clearly was not CBS's fault. If a fire breaks out in the stadium fuse box, that's on the Jaguars, and that's on the facility. However, the way in which CBS communicated this breakdown was awful. For one, CBS host James Brown initially said that they were cutting away in most markets from the Jaguars-Chiefs game to the battle between the Titans and the Browns, because that game was more competitive. And yes, they have every right to do that. If a game is out of market and is 17 points or more, so a 3-possession contest or worse, CBS has the right to switch out of a game to show a more competitive game. The Chiefs were leading by 18 after the Jaguars scored a touchdown and failed to get the 2-point conversion. So this was a completely legal move. But they switched it to a game between the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns, where the score entering the fourth quarter was 22-13. I mean, it's not like you're upgrading a whole lot there by switching it to a 2-possession game where the team up by 9 has the ball and is in opposing territory following an interception. It's not like you're upgrading to a real barn burner of a game. You're upgrading to a game that's technically more competitive, but not really. It's like upgrading from a middle seat on a plane where the seat has 9 inches of width to a middle seat on the plane where the seat has 9 1/4 inches of width. Technically an upgrade, but not by a lot. Plus, you're just ticking off Jags and Chiefs fans in the process, especially because when the game flipped over in Jacksonville and Kansas City, that was a violation of NFL rules if you're doing so for a competitive reason. You have to stick with the game the entire time. But when that game got out of hand 3 minutes later and became 36-13, as in a worse scoreline than the Jaguars-Chiefs game that you just flipped off of due to competitive reasons, only then did CBS say that they flipped the game because of technical difficulties. If they just said that at the start, and said that there were some issues with the power in the stadium, then yes, fans would obviously be upset. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But at least there would be some understanding that this was out of CBS's control. But by saying that they flipped it because of competitive reasons, and then they couldn't flip it back because of technical difficulties, CBS, in all of its genius, made it seem like they were the ones responsible for the decision. Like you had such an easy out here where you wouldn't get the blame, and through your awful communication and your lies in a way that don't actually benefit you at all, seeing as switching to a competitive game means that you, not the stadium, was the one to make the call, you dropped the ball big time. If you just said from the start, our truck lost power due to an issue in the stadium, we'll keep you updated. That sounds a heck of a lot better on your end than saying, this game sucks, we're switching to a different game. Oh wait, that one sucks too, but too bad. We can't switch it back to the original game because of a technical difficulty. It makes it seem like had you not switched the game, that you'd be able to get it back. Just a horrible job all the way around, and it shows the importance of good communication, because this was a nightmare for CBS when it didn't have to be like that at all. This is not the first time I've done a video about a Jacksonville Jaguars home game where people were unable to see how the game ended. I talked a while ago about a 1997 Monday Night Football game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Pittsburgh Steelers, where no one saw on TV the Jaguars hitting an extra point to win the game. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. However, at least with that, it was one play and it was pretty meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Unlike this, where it was half a quarter of action. The Jaguars and Chiefs play each other this Sunday, and I swear to God if the power goes out, it's never fun to not watch the ending of a game, no matter whether you're on the winning side or the losing side. You just never know what's going to happen, and I don't turn off Jaguar games for that reason. And this whole situation was just a disaster in more ways than one, where unless you were braving the absolutely sweltering heat and watching this blowout of a game, you were completely unable to witness how the end of this game unfolded. Sure, you have play logs and play-by-play from ESPN. That's how I followed the final 7 minutes of this one. But it's obviously not the same. You're just imagining what happened and how it happened. It doesn't feel real. This whole game, from the Nick Foles injury, to Myles Jack getting disqualified, to Gardner Minshew coming out of nowhere after an awful preseason to do this, to this entire debacle with the fuse box and CBS, was just a bizarre way to kick off the season. Because on this day in 2019, the only thing more inefficient than the Jaguars' defense was the fuse box in the stadium giving power to the CBS truck. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.